Morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. As Erica said, I'm Jon Duffy. I'm Chief Executive at Consumer New Zealand. We're an NGO with a mission to educate, empower, and protect consumers in New Zealand. And look, I'm very excited to be moderating this session today on a topic that is a critical one for the international consumer movement, the lived consumer experience and product safety. And I'd just like to acknowledge that we're very privileged to be joined by a special guest, Rémi Lang, who's the officer in charge of the Competition and Consumer Policies branch of UNCTAD, who we'll hear from next after I make a few brief introductory comments. Um, and then we'll move into our roundtable discussion with the panel. Just a little bit of housekeeping of my own. We've got a lot to get through, and we have some amazing speakers who we all want to hear from in the limited time we have available. So I'd ask that following the address from Mr. Lung, and the roundtable, that speakers keep their responses to 2 to 3 minutes, so that all the speakers get a fair and equal opportunity to respond if they have contributions to make. And I will reserve the right to respectfully interrupt you if you're going on too long. Um, the Consumers International teams asked me to frame the discussion today with a short reflection on product safety in 2026. And I've drawn from research and lived experience of consumers in New Zealand, but I'm sure these reflections will resonate with many viewing from other parts of the world as well. If we think about the purchasing journey from a consumer's perspective, people really just want products to turn up when they order them. They want them to match the description and the advertising. And most of all, they want them to be safe for them or their families to use. Product safety has always been and always will be an issue. However, until relatively recently, the grand excesses of product safety issues, from shoddy construction to dangerous functionality or toxic materials used in the manufacturing process, seem to be declining for many consumers, particularly in Western jurisdictions. Speaking from the experience in New Zealand, highly engaged retailers and more active regulators provided a system that consumers could largely have faith in. Unsafe products were the exception rather than the rule, no matter what their price point. As a result, it's been very easy for regulators to deprioritize resourcing proactive product safety regulation in the face of competing priorities for funding. And I guess unless we're directly affected by a product safety issue, it can be tempting for us to assume that the system is ensuring products are safe. But I guess the question for us today is that really the case? Consumer trust is declining in New Zealand. Research in early 2026 shows that consumers are now more concerned about the risks of unsafe products and want consumer organizations to prioritize research and advocacy on product safety above almost all other consumer issues. And this isn't a cost of living crisis, so includes worries about the cost of groceries and electricity and housing. So what's brought about this change? Well, as demonstrated in the global product safety study that Consumers International has recently undertaken, online marketplaces are seen by consumer advocates as a major or significant area of risk globally. In many jurisdictions globally, including my own, regulatory regimes are not keeping pace. High trust models that were designed largely for bricks and mortar businesses and that rely on businesses motivated to protect their brands and also with a physical presence in the same jurisdiction as the consumers they are selling to, they rely on those factors to work. And this means regulation has not kept pace with the changing consumer environment. As consumers, we've all been sold the convenience and cost effectiveness of buying and selling through global online marketplaces. But do these benefits outweigh the risks? Are global institutions and domestic governments doing enough to protect consumers from harmful products? And what harms are we seeing, and what solutions can we put forward to better protect consumers? These are all questions that I'm sure we will explore as the session progresses. But first, I would like to ask Mr. Rémi Lang, Officer in charge of the Competition and Consumer Policies branch at UNCTAD, to provide his special address entitled Reflections on the UN Resolution on Consumer Product Safety and Opportunities for Collaboration with Consumer Organizations in its Implementation. And I hand over to you, Mr. Lang.
Thank you very much, John. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and happy World Consumer Rights Day. On behalf of UNCTAD, I would like to thank Consumers International for their invitation to join you in this important event, which is touching on a very timely issue, consumer product safety. The issue has become a global priority, and this is confirmed this morning by the results of the survey just shown by Errico. In UNCTAD, we see two main reasons for this subject to be becoming such a priority. First, cross-border e-commerce and global supply chains have expanded rapidly. Products are often manufactured in one country, distributed through multiple intermediaries, and sold online in other countries, including through informal channels and social media. This makes it more complex to identify, track down, and remove unsafe products. Second, many countries are still developing their national product safety systems. According to UNCTAD's data, only 78 out of 122 countries for which we have official data have reported having a consumer product safety framework in place, which means that a significant number of countries still lack comprehensive legal and institutional structures. This is why UNCTAD member states defined and adopted the United Nations Principle for Consumer Product Safety. And I will now share my screen with my slides. On 15 December 2025, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the United Nations Principles for Consumer Product Safety. This represents an important milestone for global consumer protection, establishing the first international agreed guidance in this area. The principles provide a shared baseline to support governments in setting up or strengthening their product safety systems. They also help guide cooperation among regulators, businesses, and other stakeholders. Ultimately, the principle's objective is simple but powerful: to ensure that consumers everywhere can rely on products being safe, whether purchased in physical or online markets. The principles clarify that businesses bear the primary responsibility for product safety throughout the entire product lifecycle. At the same time, they encourage member states to empower public authorities with key tools to identify and manage risks, execute product recalls, and remove unsafe products from online marketplaces. Also, responsible authorities should ensure businesses take prompt corrective actions and should also inform and warn consumers about risks. Another critical element is international cooperation. In today's global and digital markets, unsafe products can circulate quickly across borders. This makes it essential for authorities to cooperate by sharing safety alerts, exchanging information on dangerous products, and coordinating enforcement actions. These principles are particularly important for developing countries, where regulatory frameworks are often still evolving. The United Nations General Assembly resolution called for UNCTAD member states to track and share experiences on the implementation of the principles through the UNCTAD Intergovernmental Group of Experts on Consumer Products Law and Policy. With the support of the European Commission, the UNCTAD Secretariat is currently preparing a handbook on consumer product safety. This is a practical guide to help policymakers and regulators strengthen national systems and harmonize approaches with international best practice. A first version of this document will be presented in July during the annual session of the UNCTAD Intergovernmental Group of Experts on Consumer Protection. In the meantime, I encourage you to scan this QR code to download a copy of the principles and learn more about this important new framework. I thank you for your attention. Over to you, Jon.
Thank you very much for that presentation. So now we're going to turn to our panel of experts and um, ask for some reflections on what you've just presented to us, Mr. Lang. And if I can start things, and then we'll go round the panelists, and if I could ask each panelist to do a very brief introduction, so that we know who you are and who you work for. If I could be so bold as to ask the first question, I noted that you that the principles note that businesses bear the primary responsibility for product safety, which I think many here in the consumer movement would heartily agree with. Um, my question is, which business? Because products will pass through a number of hands before they are sold, before they reach the consumer. What are your thoughts on whether it's manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers? Who should bear the responsibility?
Thank you, Jon. Well, the principles really state early on that I think it's actually the second paragraph of our principles that states that businesses have the primary responsibilities for this. I think this is all along the supply chain, really, from manufacturers down to the retailers, but also importers, exporters. So this really applies all along the value chains, and all bear a shared responsibility with this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, in no particular order, we'll just go with who's clockwise on my screen. So, Sandra, we'll start with you if that's all right.
That's all right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sandra Molenaar. I want to quickly introduce myself. I'm heading the Dutch Consumer Association, the Consumentenbond, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. The Consumentenbond represents consumers in the Netherlands. Our mission is simple. We work to make markets fairer, safer, more transparent, and durable for consumers. Together with consumers, we make sure that they get what they are entitled to. For independent product testing and investigations, we determine which products give consumers good value for their money. Unfortunately, we also uncover issues with product safety in areas ranging from childcare articles to online marketplace products, just like you mentioned earlier today. And I'm very happy that Mr. Lang introduced the framework of the United Nations. It's very important, I guess. And my question to Mr. Lang is, how will you include the research from consumer organizations in this work program that you will the program of you UNCTAD Intergovernmental Group of Experts on Consumer Protection Law? Will you include the work of consumer organizations, the testing and research work? I'm very curious about that.
Thank you very much, Sandra, and nice to meet you. Yes, very Very much so. We organize in UNCTAD a yearly, as I mentioned, a yearly intergovernmental group of experts. And although this is primarily an intergovernmental meeting, consumers organizations are always invited as observers, and they can contribute to the discussions. But beyond this, your voices feed into our work through the feedback you give to your consumers organizations, and we are very keen to learn from the good practices and the information alerts you give about products, for example. The data you provide us are very, very important in this respect. So yes.
Thank you very much, and I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandra. Francis, you're next on my screen, so if I can invite you to introduce yourself and pose a reflection or a question.
Yes. Hello. Thank you, John. I'm Francis Ho, Deputy Chief Executive of Consumer Council in Hong Kong. Thank you for Consumer International to organize such a meaningful product safety session. So that's my question to Mr. Lane regarding your observation. I would like to know, Hong Kong is no exception to online purchase. We have a long of purchase through online. In last year, Consumer Council in Hong Kong received over half of the complaint relating to online purchase. So I would like to know, there's come a challenge, but there's come also new opportunity and new responsibility. So I would like to know what will be the way out regarding product safety with respect to online purchases and also cross-border consumption. So I think that's a challenge, I would say, facing by the Hong Kong Consumer Council. So I would like to hear your observation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Francis, and very nice to meet you. Good morning. Well, yeah, this is a concern in Hong Kong, but also in many, in actually all jurisdictions. Products sold through platforms are known to increase risks, are known to, the controls are typically less strict, and therefore this is a concern everywhere. The recommendation would be to work with platforms, really, and to keep an active dialogue so that problems are quickly identified, also shared across jurisdictions, so that information on problematic products is quickly shared across border, because products circulate very quickly, social information. So we would recommend to work with platform, and sometimes countries have agreements with their platforms. I know that, for example, in Argentina, the Consumer Protection Agency has an agreement with the biggest platform in the market, which is Mercado Libre. But platforms should also remove the products from online lists very quickly. And again, consumer associations have a very important role to play in raising awareness, in sharing information with their authorities, with consumers, but also across borders with fellow agencies and fellow associations across the world. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I'll pass to you, Esben, for your reflection or question.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'm Esben Geist. I'm the Deputy Director of the Danish Consumer Council. And thank you for letting me present here. Well, I have another question on online marketplaces, actually. Because I think in Europe, the most important challenge to safe products come from online marketplaces. And we, as consumer organizations all over Europe, actually together with commerce organizations, are doing a lot of advocacy work and lobbying work to counter this threat and lobby for better rules and regulations. And right now it seems that we might be at least partially successful in this endeavor. But of course, the problem is a global problem, and ideally it should be dealt with on a global level or a global scale. So my question is a hard one, but I guess you have answered a bit of it already. But how is that possible? And what is your role as a UN organization in this? Thank you.
Thank you, and for your question, Esben, and good morning. Nice to meet you. As I said, I mean, the concern with the safety of goods on the online marketplace is a global one. Everywhere, really, this is feedback we get from all countries. Some regions, such as the European Union, is often ahead a little bit of other regions, or are at least among the first ones to regulate, and are often looked as an example in less advanced regions, or in regions with, let's say, less capacity to regulate. What we see as an important thing here is to continue dialogue and discussion globally. At UNCTAD, we offer an avenue for this. As you may know, within the UN, UNCTAD is the place where we discuss about consumer protection. In July every year, we organize our intergovernmental group of experts on consumer protection. And from this year onward, there will be a dedicated session in our yearly meeting about consumer product safety. So we can discuss and exchange experience, raise new concerns, look at good practice. And also what we are trying to do here is for those countries that are less advanced, to try to not only inform them of the good practice, but help them identify and share their needs for capacity building, so that they also can protect their consumers. As I mentioned, with the help of the European Union, we're developing a handbook on product safety. So this is to help countries to develop their institutional framework, put in place the appropriate legislation on consumer product safety, and then we will train. We will use the handbook and the good practice we gather through our international intergovernmental discussions to train, to develop training in developing countries. But first and foremost, I think we need to keep the dialogue open and exchange our concerns and exchange good practice. Thank you. I hope this responds to your question.
All right. Well, I think we are pretty much at the end of the reflections on your presentation, Mr. Lang. And so I guess it's over to me to thank you very much for your time and your intervention. It was very informative. Great to hear the progress that's been made here, and I'm sure we'll continue to discuss the resolution as the panel proceeds. All right. So the next section of the presentation today is to move into a roundtable discussion, and I have some questions for each of the participants. Unfortunately, we were due to have a fourth panelist from the Consumer Council of Fiji, but she has been unable to connect, but we are trying to connect with her. So speakers, you do have slightly longer per question, although we are running a bit behind time. So maybe still keep your answers to 2 to 3 minutes, just to keep us going. So Sandra, I might start with a question for you, if that's all right. The first question I have relates to our current situation and the challenges consumers face. What are the issues that consumers face today? What are the main issues that consumers face today, and how can they be harmed by unsafe products?
Yeah, when we look at the current situation and challenges, I think the most important thing with unsafe products today is that the risks to consumers are often invisible. Often products look perfectly fine to consumers that buy them, but when we test them at Consumentenbond or together with sometimes with the other consumer organizations, we sometimes often find serious safety problems. We've seen design failures on mechanical safety examples like safety gates that children can slip through, or fans that allow for small fingers to reach the turning blades, or issues with electrical safety in power banks. And there's also safety issues that consumers cannot assess at all, such as harmful chemicals. Or long-term durability problems like PFAS. I don't know how to pronounce PFAS, but I hope it's the correct
PFAS.
pronunciation.
Yep.
Yeah. So the first challenge for consumers is that they cannot realistically assess product safety themselves. That's a real issue. They think they buy safe products, but they cannot assess them. And especially when it comes to chemical safety and environmental safety, safety often depends on technical standards, laboratory testing, or durability tests that ordinary consumers, they cannot simply perform those tests themselves. A second major challenge today is the rapid growth of online marketplaces. We refer to them, all of us refer to them, to that already. Products are increasingly sold directly to consumers from outside the EU. Research shows that a very large share of these products do not meet European safety standards. In a recent study of consumer organizations, we participated in the study. We found out that 70% of those products, products from platforms like Temu and Shein, that they fail to meet EU safety standards, safety requirements. And some of them were even considered outright dangerous. And these include risks like choking hazards, small parts, for instance, toxic substances, electrical fire risks. So that's a very big challenge. And a third issue is the sheer number of products entering the market. Authorities, customs, market surveillance bodies, they work hard to monitor safety. But these daily shipments, millions and millions of packages, it's undoable. So that's another big challenge. It's impossible for all the authorities and surveillance bodies to monitor all the numbers that entering the market.
It sounds pretty grim.
Yes.
These are big problems, and certainly something that the previous references we've had to international cooperation could help with. Esben, if I could come to you and pose the next question, in a Danish context, what are the product categories you're most seeing frequently raise concerns for consumers, and why these products in particular?
Yeah, I think we have two categories of products that primarily raise concern here, and one is new product categories where we don't have standards yet, and an example of that could be baby hammocks. There's a big issue in the Danish media at the moment about baby hammocks. I think it's a New Zealand invention, really, but anyway. They lack standards, and we have tested them, and we found some serious safety issues with them. That's one kind of category of product. The other category of product is, again, products from online marketplaces, and primarily toys and cosmetics, electrical products, kitchenware, safety equipment and clothes. That is the categories that we have been mostly interested in, and where we found the most product safety issues. And actually, it's the same as Sandra has just told us, but we find problems with harmful substances like PFAS, like phthalates, like endocrine disruptors, heavy metals, and so on. We also find toy parts, small toy parts that can be swallowed by babies. I have an example here from a toy bought on Temu, where one of these eyes here can get off and be swallowed by a small child. Yeah. So and electric wiring that can cause fire, and so on and so on. So regarding these two categories of products with safety issues, we are not very concerned about products without standards, because I mean, we are living in a quite regulated society, so the standards will come at some point, and we'll fix that. But we are very, very concerned about online marketplaces, because it seems that their whole business model is actually based on non-compliance, so to speak. And as Sandro said, every time we test, it's the same. When we test, we find between 70 or 90% non-compliant products with the products from online marketplaces like Amazon and Temu and so on. They're poorly regulated, these online marketplaces, even in Europe, and I guess pose the greatest safety issue for consumers. Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right. Well, Francis, if we could move on to you, and the first question I have for you is, again, relating to the current situation and the challenges that we're facing. How are newer market realities such as online marketplaces and cross-border e-commerce, and of course second-hand products, increasing risks for consumers?
Yeah, thank you, John. Actually, Hong Kong is no exception. We are facing similar risk factor when we are talking about online purchase and cross-border consumption. You know, nowadays, I don't know whether the situation is unique to Hong Kong. Hong Kong consumer nowadays enjoy over the weekend going to the north, to the mainland city, because we are part of the Greater Bay Area. It's very convenient for Hong Kong consumer to cross the border to the mainland city to enjoy their weekend. So every weekend, over 100,000 of Hong Kong consumer will go north for consumption. So he comes the risk, particularly concerning about the electronic or electrical product purchased outside Hong Kong jurisdiction. You know, the electrical product, particularly the plug standards, are different between mainland and Hong Kong. So when they bring those electrical products to Hong Kong for use, there are safety risks. Talking about maybe overheating or fire risk, because they have to use it with plug adapter. The risk associated with the long-term use of a plug adapter is obvious. So with such a challenges, actually we are having a lot discussion with the Guangdong Consumer Council, Macau Consumer Council across the region. We are now agree to work on few areas that we call new responsibility in facing of the cross-border consumption and online purchase consumption. Firstly, we agree to trying to build the bridges among us for more integration. It means we are trying to deepen our mutual trust in standard. We agree to explore the development as well as the promotion of mutually recognized consumer right protection and product safety standard. So we have forming a committee, and Hong Kong, Macau, and Guangdong will have their professional and the representative from the Consumer Council to work out sort of the standards and the guidelines. We are trying to transform the mature experience and institutional achievement of pioneer region into universally applicable and socially recognized standard. We are trying to form the norms and form the rules and guidelines for, hopefully, for the trader and the industry to follow. We are aiming to develop this sort of standard in the will to solidify the foundation for an integrated consumer environment through rule-based integration. To cut it short, aligning the standard, or at least making them more transparent to consumer is essential to maintain consumer confidence and to protect the consumer rights and interests. We think we are all agree, working on this area. That's one thing to address the challenge. And the other two is talking about trying to improve the cross-regional campaign transfer mechanism. We are agreed that to work together to further streamline transfer channels and optimizing the campaign handling procedures with a will to effectively reduce the cost and also enhancing the efficiency of cross-regional consumer right protection, and thereby making consumer dispute resolution more efficiency and compassionate. Let's take Hong Kong as an example. We have MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, with lot of major Asia country on campaign transfer mechanism, like Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Philippines, and Malaysia. And apart from that, we have also have MOU signed with over 30 cities in the mainland China. We agree that focusing on mutual public concern and consumer pain point, from time to time, we will jointly issue consumer alert, public product safety notice, or risk warning notice when necessary to safeguard consumer interest. So lastly, I want to raise the last point is consumer education. I think it's very important because when we are talking about over 100,000 visitors across the border every day, it makes enforcement very difficult, to check those unsafe product out. So I think another important work is to deepening our collaborative effort between consumer protection agency in the region in consumer education. By working in union, I think we shall be able to create a strong atmosphere of safe and rational consumption, enhancing consumer own self-protection awareness and empowering them to make informed consumption decision. So that 3 points are that in the region, we are, as a consumer protection agency, we are to work on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I do have I have a question just on that last point on consumer education. How do you respond to the point that Sandra made earlier around the difficulty that consumers have in detecting safety issues with products, particularly when they're, I don't know, imagine a product's packaged up, it's very difficult to understand what materials it has been made of. You may be able to educate a consumer that, I don't know, certain toxins in the material are bad or that certain functionality could be harmful. But in my view, at some point, consumer education can only go so far, and actually compliance on the side of the seller or the manufacturer needs to be the kind of final safety net. What's your response to that?
Yeah, when we are talking about consumer education, also, of course, consumer education alone is not only the solution. There are other solutions talking about regulation, standard development, enforcement, etc., etc. But when we are talking about consumer education, we are now working in collaborative action by joining in doing together in doing the product test. So between Guangdong, Macau, and Hong Kong, we will select those risk factors product to conduct the product test, and with a will to publicize, the findings to a consumer across the region, so that they can be informed when they are, going to purchase the product related. I think it helped to a certain extent about, safeguarding about consumer interest and the product safety issue.
Thank you for that. Sandra, I see you have a comment to make there as well.
Yes, of course, what Consumentenbond tries to do is to educate consumers to make them aware about unsafe products and where not to buy. But there was a recent Norwegian study from our Norwegian colleagues, and people are pretty aware that the stuff they're buying from, for instance, Temu and Shein might not be safe, but they simply cannot resist the low prices, attractive promotions, and sometimes there are even black patterns to convince them to buy even more. So it's hard to make consumers responsible for their own choices. It's a strange sentence from a consumer advocacy director, but people should be protected. They cannot make those choices themselves. It's hard to resist all those misleading and tempting offers.
Mm. And potentially this is why the UN resolution states that the primary responsibility for product safety sits with businesses.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah.
Espen, if we could come to you, the next question I had for you was in relation to kind of what our priorities should be, what's needed. What kind of initiatives, either national or cross-border, are needed to strengthen product safety?
Yeah. Well, I think for the non-standard products that I talked about before, I mean, we have, so to speak, the normal strategy in our organization. We do some testing and we publish the results. We have a dialogue with the producers, and usually things are changed for the better, or we get new standards and everything is fixed. But when it comes to online marketplaces, we have to have a much broader strategy, so to speak. So we focus a lot on the structural level, on making the regulation better, because just as Sandra just said, I mean, we don't think that the consumers should be responsible for their own choices, so to speak. Or we believe that it should not be the responsibility of consumers to know where it's safe to buy products. I mean, you can't see if a product is full of endocrine disruptors or PFAS or whatever. So we need to have the product safe before they enter the market, so to speak. And for that reasons, we do a lot of advocacy work, and we do a lot of public affairs work. Also, not only in our small country, Denmark, but on the European level. Of course, we try to put the issues on the public agenda also, and we have good experience doing tests. We have done many tests on products from online marketplaces, where we publish the results in national media outlets telling about the safety issues. But we spend a lot of time, as I said, having dialogues with the politicians and authorities, and also business, since business is very much affected. I mean, compliant European businesses are very much affected by these problems. We're also a member of a Danish task force that has been established by the Danish government to counter online marketplaces and unsafe products. In our country, we are lucky because because it's agreed across the board really that there are safety issues here and challenges for both consumers and businesses. So at the EU level, we work across borders and a lot and increasingly actually since the legislation needs to be changed on an EU level to have an effect in our country. So we have dialogues with the Commission a lot, and we have and also with parliamentarians in the European Parliament. Right now we are working on an event on online marketplaces together with the Danish MEP, yeah. So I think that we have to use a lot of tools. We have to look at the whole toolbox in order to encounter these problems.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Sandra, if I could come to you and ask you a similar question, what do you think should be the top priorities for strengthening product safety through this year?
Yes, what Espen already stressed is that Europe currently has one of the strongest product safety frameworks in the world. That's good, and it's good to be proud of, but that framework is under pressure now, and it comes from two sides. On the one hand, the technological and market developments. We already referred to the cross-border online sales that is threatening our framework, but also AI might be a development that's threatening our product safety framework. And on the other hand, we see political pressure to simplify regulation and to reduce administrative burdens in the chemical omnibus and the digital omnibus. And what we really want to be aware of and to prevent is that simplification should never come at the expense of consumer protection. So in our view, there are three priorities for the coming years. First, we need to maintain and strengthen protections against harmful chemicals. We already referred sometimes in this meeting to harmful chemicals in everyday products. We see that the European Commission is currently working on the chemical omnibus and revisions of the cosmetics regulations and the detergents regulations. These are products we all use on a daily basis by millions of people, and sometimes like vulnerable groups, such as pregnant women. They use all kinds of cosmetic products, and they should really be protected from potential harmful ingredients. So for consumers, it's essential that revisions do not weaken existing safeguards. Just to simplify, simplification should never lead to weakening the protection. And what we also want is then sometimes there are transition periods for phasing out substances. Those transition periods, they should be not extended. There's a proposal now to extend those phasing out transition periods, but we really want to make sure that those transition periods will be shortened. And of course, consumers should also have clear and reliable information about ingredients in the products they use, for instance, if they use it on their skin, but also in their homes and in their clothes. All this information should be available for consumers. So I just said you cannot make consumers responsible, but at least you can properly inform them. What we also need is strong digital product safety rules. More products today are connected, data-driven, or AI-enabled. And at the same time, now the European Commission is considering a digital omnibus which could simplify rules related to, for instance, GDPR, privacy legislation, or AI legislations. But these frameworks are crucial for protecting consumers. Maybe we are more talking about physical safety now, but there's also, of course, a digital safety. So I would like to address that topic as well. And what we also need, and that's very important, but also a very large challenge, is to have stronger enforcement in global markets. Even we have very good legislation, but this only works if it's enforced. and millions of products enter the European market through online platforms. And what I already said, it's for all the authorities. They really need to have the resources and tools to act quickly against those unsafe products. But to summarize, what we say is simplification should never mean lowering protection. That's a very important, how do you say it, statement we want to make.
Thank you for that. And I know I'm just the moderator, but I'll share a little insight from New Zealand. We currently have a government which is very much focused on reducing red tape and compliance costs for business, and are currently reviewing many of our labeling laws for food and things like children's nightwear and things like that. And we've had to remind the government departments that are doing those reviews that many of those laws have come about because of horrific accidents or incidents that have affected many consumers. They haven't just been thought up because somebody was worried something might happen. They're usually based on something terrible that has happened. So
Yeah.
I think it's very important for us as advocates to keep the actual consumer experience in mind when we're talking about these things.
A simplification might help, for instance, for effective enforcement if it's make more simple, but not lowering the standards. That wouldn't help. Exactly like you said.
Agree. All right. Francis, if I could come to you next and ask you the same question around priorities, what extra regulatory tools make the biggest difference in your context? Is it market surveillance, recalls, data sharing, enforcement, cooperation, or is there something else?
Yeah, effective system don't rely on single one, initiative. Surveillance, recall, data sharing, cooperation among those consumer protection agency concerned are all make product more safe for consumer as well. So I think a government have a very important part to play. If they can treat product safety as a strategic priority, not just a tools. I think if they realize that and would like to invest more in sort of infrastructure enforcement and harmonize the standard and as well. So if they can collectively take a step forward, will make product safety an easier part, to enforce. But other than government, I think trader has also an important part to play as well as by many, speaking about, the role played by the manufacturer or the trader. There's no question about that, but I would like to emphasize trader engagement and trader education is also important. I think it's very important for the trader to recognize that, produce safe product is a way to make them more reputable, to earn the consumer trust. It will be part of their economic return and also to enhance their competitiveness in the economy. I think it is also important, for the trader to aware this, and a lot more education with active participation by the government and also the consumer protection agents involved is important in this respect. So hopefully, by clarifying standard, building enforcement capacity, mandating transparent recall mechanism will help to create a much safer environment, for consumers.
Thank you for that. All right. I have one question left for each of you, and we have 10 minutes left in the session. So we actually have 9 minutes left in the session. So we'll strictly stick to 3 minutes per answer. Francis, I might start with you just to reverse the order. This is moving to something a bit more positive. So we'd like to now talk a little bit about successful cases and solutions. So starting with you, Francis, do you have any examples where better cooperation between consumer groups, regulators, and business has improved safety outcomes?
Yeah, As what I said before, we have worked very closely with our counterpart in the Greater Bay Area, like Guangdong Consumer Council, Macau Consumer Council. Last week, actually, we gathered together in Shenzhen to discuss about the way forward. That's the reason why eventually we come up with sign a joint declaration, agreeing to cooperating together in consumer education, trying to develop sort of a standard commonly agreed and recognized socially by the consumer, and to make it publicized, hopefully in the years to come, to enable consumer to know more about the risk associated and the standard involved in the product safety. And for Consumer Council in Hong Kong, we in trying to look forward. Few months before, we established a new working committee in cross-border and e-commerce working group. We draw about the trader from the industry, trying to work together in developing relevant standards about e-commerce, about online purchase, about the after-sale of online purchase, that sort of things. So we are taking the lead, to coordinate with various stakeholders in e-commerce, trying to work out, the way forward. The first step is working out a commonly agreed standard so that consumer interest and consumer right will be well protected on online purchase. That's that we are going to do. I think there's a long way, to go, but we are taking, the lead to doing sort of initiative on that area. Another part, I think we have to strengthen the cooperation among the consumer protection agency in the region. That's the reason why we are engaging in lots of dialogue with overseas counterpart, particularly in the mainland counterpart, trying to work out, sort of campaign handling mechanism, trying to work out risk product, survey, risk product test together, and so that we could publicize, the finding and the result jointly to the consumer and the respective region, so that they could make their informed consumption decision. That's all we are currently doing.
Okay, thank you for that. And Espen, I might come to you next. Again, talking about successful cases and solutions that you've come across, what's one promising innovation or practice that could be scaled across countries?
Yeah. Well, for us, as I've already indicated, I think testing of goods from online marketplaces have generally been very successful in setting the agenda and attracting the attention of decision makers in our country. So we've done testing of toys and electric chargers, clothes, jewelry, cosmetics, and so on. And some of our testing has required labs, and some of our testing has not required labs. And an example of something that I think could be scalable and does not require a lab is a testing of choice. And I have, for example, this one. It's a pacifier string bought on one of the online marketplaces. And the European rule says that it should maximum be 22 centimeters, I think, and this one can be stretched to be a lot longer, and therefore it can be harmful to children. So it's just a question of measuring this thing. And the other thing that I showed before was this toy where you could take out the parts, and we have this instrument here that has the same size as the throat of a child, and as long as it can get into this, it's not legal in Europe. So it's a very easy way of doing testing that does not require a lab, and we've done a lot of that, and the testing of choice is actually one of the most effectful tests that we have done. So yeah, I think I'll stick to that now.
Great, thank you. And finally, Sandra, we'll finish with you, but just for all of the attendees, following Sandra's answer to the final question, we'll move into a Q&A session. So I'd like to invite you to use the Q&A facility on Zoom if you want to ask a question, and the wonderful team at Consumers International will be moderating the questions. So just to give us kind and easy ones, and we'll answer the questions that get filtered through. So well, while you're thinking up your question, I will ask Sandra a final question, and that is again relating to successful cases and solutions. Has your organization taken on any product safety cases, I guess, in the last 2 years, and what's changed as a result?
Yeah, but I start with something we do over decades of time. We conduct product testing across many product categories all over the years. And these tests also reveal unsafe and non-conform products. And when safety issues are found, we do not only warn consumers or inform manufacturers, but we also report the product to our National Market Surveillance Authority. That's called the NVWA. And we have a close cooperation with this authority, and they remove products from the market or impose sanctions. So that's a very good cooperation. It prevents the products to be longer on the market, on the Dutch market. And in the last years, we've reported safety issues with stairgates, electrical fans, baby mattresses, travel cots. And those products have been taken from the market or have been redesigned to solve the issues we found. What we also do is we participate in ANEC, ANEC, that's a European Consumer Voice in Standardization. And we contribute to improve product safety standards within that organization. For example, evidence from our product testing helped improve the European safety standard for stairgates. After research showed that some flexible roll-up gates allowed small children to crawl underneath them, we developed new standards because of that test. And what we also do is we work together in the European organization BEUC. I don't know if you heard of it, but it's our European advocacy organization. Together with other European organizations, we work together within that organization. And research on unsafe products sold via online marketplace helped to inform the revision of the European General Product Safety Regulation. So we help with our research to develop new legislation on a European level. So that's what we do as consumer organizations all together, but also as Consumentenbond. And I think I'll stick with that.
Excellent. All right. Well, that brings us very close to the end of our panel session. Now we have until 8:30 a.m., which is 9:30 p.m. my time in the future. And so we're meant to have around about 10 minutes of Q&A. So very happy to answer any questions that attendees may have. And then I'll do a quick wrap up at the end, kind of covering off some of the points that we've discussed today. So just having a check here to see if any questions have come through. There aren't any so far, so I will.
Always quite clear.
Yeah, we've explained everything, so there's no need for any questions. I guess are there panelists? A lot of you spoke about the need for clear enforcement guidelines for enforcement agencies and kind of clear strategies from enforcement agencies to address product safety issues. Are there any, and I'll start with you, Sandra, because you're the only one who's not muted. Are are there any examples around the globe where you can think of an example of an enforcement agency or a regulatory regime that's doing it really well that others should aspire to?
Oh, that's a very good question, and my knowledge is not that good of all the global authorities or whatever. But I think all the authorities in the world, they lack capacity to do everything they want to do. They lack tooling and they lack capacity. Sometimes they want to enforce and they don't have the instruments, or they don't have the people to do what they want to do. So it's hard to give an example, but I know what they all need. In the Netherlands, we also need more capacity and more instruments to do the enforcement properly. Yeah, and working together with on an international basis could help as well, because a lot of challenges are cross-border, so it's hard to solve them within your borders.
Okay. Any comments from other panelists on that question?
In Hong Kong, Consumer Council is now trying to working more closely with relevant authority, like the government department, in doing the border test, because advocacy is part of council's work. In the old days, we used to do the border test by ourselves, but starting last year, we are trying to engage the relevant government department to do the border test jointly, with a will to share the resources, and also with a will to include them to use the finding to amend the relevant regulation as well. So that just a starting point. We are working in the last few months. We are working together to do air conditioner border test. In the future, we will do a lot more, like boiler, water boiler, etc., etc. So hopefully, by doing border test jointly together with relevant government authority and department, we can make use of the result and the finding to make the law and the regulation more appropriate, more updated, and more relevant to protect consumer rights and interests, particularly ensure the border safety.
Thanks for that, Francis. And look, I do have a question that's come through from an attendee. And that question is, how do consumer protection organizations plan to address the persistent relisting of unsafe or recalled products on online marketplaces where the same items reappear repeatedly even after being reported or removed? It makes me feel like we should have someone from an online marketplace here to explain to us why that keeps happening. But Esmond, I'll pass to you to answer that one.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that is, of course, one of the huge problems with online marketplaces. And we've seen it many, many times. And when we've tested a toy that was non-compliant, for example, we told Temu or Amazon, and they take it down immediately. But then they have 200 other similar toys that are also unsafe and are still there. And sometimes the same products reappear, and sometimes similar products can be bought on the same online marketplace. The thing is that European rules are not very strong here. I mean, it's quite clear that they should remove the one product that is unsafe, but it's more unclear if they have to remove similar products. The large online platforms, they probably have to do it, and there's a case right now in the European Commission against the Temu on this issue. And we hope that it will be solved that way. But it is one of the biggest problems with online marketplaces, that there are millions and millions of products, and when so many of them are unsafe or non-compliant, I mean the problem is just really out of hand. So I don't know if that was an answer, but
Well, it's an answer to an impossible question, I think.
yeah.
It is.
Would anyone else like to contribute to that one?
I endorse completely the answer of Espen. It's a very huge challenge, and it's for consumer organizations. It's impossible to solve. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have another question here through from an attendee, and that question is, have any of the organizations represented here ever sanctioned or banned manufacturers in their country or other online sources? And I should probably stress it's my understanding that I don't think any of us represent enforcement agencies in respective jurisdictions. So I can certainly say uh, from Consumer New Zealand's perspective, we don't have the power or authority to sanction or ban a manufacturer. We can embarrass them. That is our key weapon by raising awareness that products they're selling are dangerous, for example, or misleading, um, and hope that it shames them into changing their behavior, or it highlights the problem to an enforcement agency with real enforcement powers to do something about. I'll pass to you, Espen, to address that further.
Yeah, thank you. Well, of course, we as an NGO we can't do it either, but the Danish Safety Authority has tried to have a case against Wish, the online platform Wish, and for selling some garden gear that was unsafe. And they were trying to establish that they were breaking European and Danish rules, but and they were taking them to court. But 3.5 years into this court case, it was settled, and and there was no sanction against Wish, but they removed these products from the platform. So it has been tried, and the Danish authorities were trying to ban probably the whole website, but weren't successful in that. So yeah, unfortunately, not.
Thank you for that. And Sandra, I'll pass to you. You've got your hand up.
We aren't able to enforce neither because we are a consumer organization, but we work closely together with authorities. I just explained that. And our authority is able to remove products from the market, and they often do, but not completely the manufacturer in as a whole, but products from a manufacturer. So it happens in the Netherlands that products will be removed from the market.
Excellent. Anything to add there, Francis?
Yeah, same applies in Hong Kong. The enforcement agency in Hong Kong is the Custom and Excise Department. We have a very good relationship with them. So in case we find there are risk, involved in the product safety or from the safety or for the product test, we are come up with sort of finding, suggest or indication of such risk. We will refer them to Custom and Excise Department. There are a few prosecution cases in my memory, and there are also occasions they can successfully, remove those product from the platform as well. So there's a good intelligence, sharing mechanism between council and the customer excise department, and they are quite effective, in follow up front.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I see we are running quite close to time, and the agenda says that I am meant to summarize some key takeaways for the session today. I mean, look, it has been a fascinating discussion. Firstly, I'd like to thank all of the panelists for their contributions. I've learned a lot. It's been a very, very interesting discussion. I think I guess the points that stick with me, starting with the UN resolution, this idea that businesses bear the primary responsibility for product safety. I think that's a really important point to keep in mind as we think about product safety. Yes, there are complications involved in identifying which business should have the responsibility in the supply chain. There's lots of businesses that get their hands on products before they reach the consumer. I think the the point around the invisible risks, the idea of credence goods where consumers just have to have faith that what they're buying isn't going to harm them, is something that I think is very important for us to keep in mind as we think about regulating product safety. And I thought that point was really well made throughout the panel. The other issue that I think came through as a consistent theme was the need for effective and coordinated enforcement, both cross-border and within jurisdictions. I think every speaker touched on this point, and it's one that resonates, but I guess in a increasingly fractured world, it seems like a goal that may be further away than perhaps it was a decade ago. But we can live in hope that institutions such as the United Nations and other organizations like Consumers International that bring together multiple parties from different countries to talk about these type of topics can have the required influence to bring people together for something that is in everyone's benefit as humans on this planet.